Millions of people have lost weight with personalized plans from Noom. Like Evan, who can't stand salads and still lost 50 pounds.
Salads generally for most people are the easy button, right? For me, that wasn't an option. I never really was a salad guy. That's just not who I am. But Noom worked for me.
Get your personalized plan today at Noom.com. Real Noom user compensated to provide their story. In 4 weeks, the typical Noom user can expect to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. Individual results may vary.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
Hi, I'm Leti Sagun.
And I'm Ashley Frangi.
And together we host Se Regalan Dudas, a Spanish podcast with many episodes in English as well that has hit over 100 million downloads worldwide, making it to the top 25 global chart.
What started as a raw, unfiltered conversations between two best friends struck a chord with millions, evolving into an open space where we bring in experts, thought leaders to challenge the norms, explore topics ranging from relationships and sexuality to personal growth and mental health. Here, no topic is off limits.
Catch new episodes of Se Regalan Dudas every Tuesday and Thursday on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on YouTube. Let's dive deep, challenge norms, and have some real talk together. The way you would spell and find our podcast is SE space REGALAN space DUDAS. Se Regalan Dudas.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
Hello guys, welcome to this week's episode of Heavy Metal Tones with me, your podcast host Tony Evans. This is part 2 of the songs that open shows. Last week's episode, if you dared to listen, was the factual open songs that open shows, that basically my record collection, or some of my record collection, the actual songs that open. This one is a fantasy opening songs. Now, this was inspired by my good friend Millsie, listener to the show and long-term friend, and he had this lovely idea about talking about songs that open shows. Should they be bangers? Should they be quiet starters? You know, I got to a slight conclusion towards the end where I was adamant that they should be slow start, loud finish, but sort of towards the end of the show and thinking about it, I quite sort of don't mind an opening banger, as Millsie would put it. Now, we also have the Millsie Meter. I did look for some sound effects to put in this in here, but for the life of me could not find one that would fit. It didn't cost me an arm and a leg, you know. So you have to imagine the spinning wheel, or you know that sound effect when you hit the at the fair to test your weight, where it goes boing, bing, hits the bell. Imagine that, and you'll be fine. So, you know, picture this. It doesn't matter, you could be a teenager, you could be an adult, it could be next week, it could be when you were a teenager. But that feeling you get, you know, when you go to a gig, if it's a band that you know, or a singer or a song or whoever, someone you know, and you love dearly, that sense that you stand there amongst people of like-minded beliefs, and you go right, and you're sitting, you're milling around, you're either outside queuing up, waiting to get in, talking to strangers in the crowd as I do, or your mates, or you're in a bar waiting at the gig, sort of chatting away, or standing at the merch stand, wherever you are. That sense of wonderful, of wonders to come. Are they going to open with blah, the big song? Are they going to open with something new? Are they going to open with something you've never, something from the old catalogue if it's a big band? You never know, right? And that adds that spice to the night, I think, not knowing. I mean, of some bands, as I've mentioned before, A lot of these bands I mentioned now open with the same song every time. So this stuff will be slightly different. Now, I'm going to do a mixture of all sorts of genres. It's not just heavy metal. As you know me, I like all music. So it's going to be an interesting mix. Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to name the band and I'm going to name my fantasy opening song. Possibly where I'd like to see it played, if I can squeeze that in. And the era of the band. Right, imagine we're going to do a bit of time traveling here, right? So a bit of Scooby-Doo action, you know, yeah, that stuff. You know, wibbly wobbly screen, you know, bit of Scooby-Doo stuff going on. Now, it took me a little while. There's so much stuff that you could talk about. In fact, I have pages and pages of notes here. So it'll be fun, and we'll see how we go. Now, just on a quick bit of housekeeping, in 2 weeks' time will be my 150th episode. Would you believe it? 150 episodes. It's crazy town, right? I'm going to talk about one of my a musician that is sort of probably not in a lot of listeners' spectrum that it should be. It's one of those forgotten ones that people of my generation, a bit older, will remember, but the younger guys might not know. And I think that it would be really important. This particular performer straddles glam, punk, hard rock, blues, progressive, with one of the best names of bands in the history of music, in my opinion. And sadly, he died young, the lead singer. So we didn't get much off from him. We got a fair bit, but not a huge amount. So I'd love to talk about that, because he really truly did influence and still influences a lot of my musical tastes. I'm just listening to the new Saxon tribute album they did, which is all like songs from their past, their tribute, their bands that influenced them. And one of the tracks is by this band, and it made me think, do you know what? I think we need to talk about him and them a little bit more, and get them back into the emotional zeitgeist, as they say. And I did say zeitgeist, so you can't stop me. All right. I know another long word, a wheelbarrow. There we go. Doesn't matter. Right, so where do we begin? Now, I'm going to begin with some of the bands that Millsie sort of chatted to me about over the last couple of days. Now, see, that was a spring on my microphone stand. He wanted me to talk about a lot of different bands. Obviously, he has very varied taste like me. But he sort of mentioned originally UFOs opening with Dr. Doctor. Now, Dr. Doctor is one of those songs that we all love, right? We all enjoy, and it's a crowd pleaser. And I don't know, I haven't looked into this whether they have opened with Dr. Doctor before, but this will be original lineup, of course. As I mentioned before, unless I say it's a later one, all these bands will be original lineups in their heyday. So this will be 81 for UFO. They sort of influenced Iron Maiden and a lot of the heavy rock bands of the new album sort of era, or the new wave of British heavy metal, as it's probably mentioned. Or as I like to call it, just plain heavy metal, the origin story. And I have to say that for me, I wouldn't open with UFO's Dr. Doctor. I'd probably open with something else. But if this is Millsie's choice and he wants to open with a cracker, I think Dr. Doctor would be the case. The audience reaction to that song when it's played by other bands is absolutely outrageous, and it's often played before. Most people a lot of bands play it as a warm-up to their live show. I know that Iron Maiden does it. It always makes me smile. It's one of those songs that straddles pop and rock and heavy metal and sort of glam and sort of Euro metal really, really well. UFO is one of those bands that I sadly never got to see live, and you know, we've lost one of the members recently from them, their bass player, and you know, they sort of just, them and the Scorpions are those sort of bands where you'd happily take someone who's not overly fond of heavy rock or heavy metal to see them, because they make songs like Doctor Doctor, and people can they're like Def Leppard. I've not spoiler here, Def Leppard's not on my list, or it could jump in. I've written it down, it might jump in. Again, same thing, that sort of the easy listening side of heavy metal, if you know what I mean by that, without offending UFO or Def Leppard fans, or even Scorpion fans, to be honest with you. So where was I going with that? Yeah, so he wanted me to open with Doctor Doctor, and I can't, and that, you know, is an absolute cracker of an opener. It's fun, it's bouncy, it will get the audience going exactly what he wants it to do. And I can't fault him on that one. I really can't. And on the Millsie Meter, boing, insert noise there. I would say it's going to be about a 7 for me, because I'd rather have that as a closer. So I go home singing it, because that's the song I want to sing. You know, I'd whistle on the train home. You know what I mean? That's the kind of, yeah, I reckon a 7. I reckon on the old it's a 7. All right. Now we're going to change track completely here, and we're going to go to into the sort of the punky side of things. Move away from the easy listening heavy rock to some fantastic Irish punk pop, some of the greatest punk pop ever made. I know that people will point to there was a lot of P's in that, wasn't there? People will point to probably to the Buzzcocks, and sometimes they'll point to Green Day, but I will roll my eyes at that one. But they'll point to the Buzzcocks. Really, I generally think that XTC or this band here that I'm about to mention are the greatest of the punk pop songs. And to be honest, the undertones, and this is first lineup undertones. There is the undertones are going around at the moment without Fergal Sharkey, but it's not the undertones without Fergal Sharkey. Now, I was thinking, okay, Millsie mentioned he liked Jimmy Jimmy as an opening song for that one, and I get it, because it's quite a fast-paced, quite a sing-along song, bouncy, you know, get the crowd going. I'm going to disagree again with Millsie on here. I think, for me, it would be Mars Bar, which is, if you know the song, it's quite an odd little song, but it's fast, it's sing-along, it's very punky. It's got the lyric, I need a Mars bar, you know, work, rest and play, which was the advert for Mars bars. I just find it fun, punky and playful. Jimmy Jimmy is a bit more soulful, and I can see why you'd want to open with it. It's not a banger, as big a banger as, say, My Cousin Kevin, but it is still a really good sing-along open song. It's a brilliant single. I love it because I love the undertones, and I get where Millsie's coming from on the Millsie Meter. I'm going to put that one and score that one. Boing! I'm going to score that one an 8, because I think that's generally a cracking opening a song. Now, a lot of these you're going to say, Tony, but most of these are your fantasy opening songs. Aren't they all going to score high? Yes, they will. So the concept fell flat there slightly, but doesn't matter. We'll crack on. With the concept. And then we're going to move to another contentious one here, right? Okay. The Jam. The wonderful, wonderful, wonderful 60s inspired punk band The Jam. Again, original lineup. I don't think they've toured without the original lineup, but I know that Foxton on bass does have a tribute band, sort of tribute band, because there's only him in it, and some, so they do jam covers. But original lineup jam, it's at the Marquee. Can you imagine? Sorry, again, Doctor at Wembley Arena. Huge crowd, all bouncing around, amazing. And the Undertones at the Marquee again, like small, intimate, joyful and fun, and that's what that punk pop's about. But the jam would be somewhere like the Marquee or the Town and Country Club, which became the Forum, which is now something else, or even maybe the Hammersmith Odeon. Somewhere. I mean, it's a big size, the Odeon, but sort of medium-sized gig. Now, there are lots of songs that the Jam could open with, and on my fantasy opening one, what would I want? Would I want something that I'd never heard before, or would I want something that I've heard before and I'm familiar with, and I just want to hear them play? Now, there's a couple here, right? So I think Millsie was mentioning, and we were talking about That's Entertainment, because there is a brilliant piece of lyrical writing. I mean, Paul Weller is one of the greatest lyricists of the 20th century. He's a brilliant songwriter. His way with words is on par with Elvis Costello and John Lydon. I've mentioned this before. He's just and Billy Bragg. He's a very, very smart, astute wordsmith. And That's Entertainment is brilliant because it has the wittiness, the fun and banter, and the musical energy to open the venue, the gig with. But I would score that and like an 8. It's going to get old early, isn't it? On the on the old Millsie Meter, I'm going to score it an 8, but possibly even a 7. I myself, if it was, and this is coming from me now, my opening track for the Jam would be News of the World, because it's my favourite Jam song. I want it early. I want it early because if it's in the middle of the gig, I'm going to forget it. If it's at the end, I'm too knackered to really enjoy it. I want it at the beginning because it is one of my favourite Foxton bass lines. It's one of my favourite Weller lyrics. It's got vitriol, it's got energy, it's got punkness, it's got poppiness. It's truly one of my favourite songs of the era, actually. So that would score a 10. Ding, 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 ding. It will score a 10 for me. If they opened up at the Marquee 1980, whatever, 79, 80, and played That's Entertainment, I think it would go absolutely off, to be honest. And then we're going to go to another one I just mentioned, Elvis Costello. So Elvis Costello and the Attractions, what a band, right? Again, one of the greatest lyricists of his generation. He has the most diversity of musical styles. I don't like the stuff, to be honest, he does with Burt Bacharach, but hey, that's his choice. Burt Bacharach, he wrote the tunes. That's a Monty Python quote. If anyone can know what it is, let me know, because I'll be interested if I want to get to it. I know that John will. Anyway, sorry, off tangent. So this song, again with Elvis Costello, so many could be brilliant opening songs, couldn't they? You could have Watching the Detectives, absolutely brilliant. You could have oh gosh, so many. You could have Allison, that's a great opening track. But for me, it has to be Elvis Costello's Oliver's Army. The reason that Oliver's Army would make me cry seeing him live in his heyday was because it's the one song that my brother and I bond on. We don't bond on a lot of things musically. My older brother Michael, but that song, he brought it home. We had this little sort of Dan Electronics record deck, you know, a little tiny sort of lift lid. It had a lid, you lift it up and the speaker was in the lid. It was one of those little spring deck. It was cheap, terrible stylus, terrible sound, but it was the only record player we were allowed to have in the house. It wasn't my father's. Dad wouldn't allow music in the house. I told you that before on this show. We won't go into that one. And he brought it home with, I believe he brought it home with Blondie's Heart of Glass and the Sex Pistols' Come On Everybody. I don't know whether they all came out at the same time. I mean, I haven't checked that, or they were just, you know, he got them second. I don't know, but he brought them home relatively just after they were released, so late 70s, early 80s, and I was a young boy, and he played it on and it just, you know, every time I hear it now, it makes the hairs on the back of my arms stand up. And it is a song I've told you before in this podcast, if you're a fan of the show and listened before, that I do want played at my funeral. One of the many songs that I want played at my wake, if you know what I mean, or in the church even. I don't give not church, wherever, you know, it doesn't matter. But that's one of the songs I want played, and it means a lot to me. And so to hear him play that may not be the greatest opener for most Elvis Costello fans. They might think it's a bit passé, and because it was his big single, but for me, it just means it means a lot. It was the connection I have with my brother particularly, and I just love the song. I love the lyric. I love the bounciness of the melody. I like Elvis's. I like the video of him on the beach. You know, I like the lyric that can offend people. It's in that song. You know, you wouldn't get away with it now. I think it's just brilliant. And as an opener, it would just send me into vitriolic raptures. You know what I mean? Is that the right term? I don't know. Anyway, we're going to move swiftly on to the last song for this side of the show. And this one is going to be, it's a bit of a harder one, right? It's Iron Maiden. Now, very difficult, very, very difficult, because I'm going to talk about two eras of Iron Maiden here, okay? One second, my computer's gone into sleep mode. I don't know why it does that. Are we back? Yes, I think we are. There we go. Yes, so there were two eras to Maiden, with Di'Anno and Dickinson. Both of them were tricky. I sat down this morning over coffee and chatted to my lovely wife about this, who is also a Maiden fan, and we could not agree. I know that there is another era of Maiden, but I'm just going to do the two, okay? Otherwise we'll be here all day. Now, for me, it's going to be... Now, most people will go, my wife said Number of the Beast, and that's a classic option. And it was a great album, and it's not my favourite Maiden album. My favourite Maiden album is Peace of Mind, as you all know, but none of the tracks off Peace of Mind are going to be on this, for me, as an opener. For me, I'm going to be controversial. I'm going to say something that would, you know, most bands couldn't open with a 12.5-minute song, but I want Maiden to do it. I want Maiden to open with Rime the Ancient Mariner, and I'll tell you why. During the world slavery tour, I want them to open with Rime the Ancient Mariner because I want to be fresh for that one. I want to get to that middle eight with a, you know, Steve Harris bass piece and the, you know, that slow dun 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 dun, fresh. I want it to open and wow me, right? I know people say, oh, that should be in the middle, maybe that should be at the end. I reckon I'm going to be controversial. I want it at the beginning because I could not tell you what state I would be in if they played that first. I would be so. This is my fantasy opening number, right, guys? You might disagree. You might say Number of the Beast. You might say Where Eagles Dare. You might say Hallowed Be Thy Name. You might say any of the plethora of their amazing out songs. But for me, Romeo and the Ancient Mariner, because it is another one that I'm going to be having played at my funeral. Sorry to be a maudlin about this, but that's what that is. How it is. I want that happening, and that's it for me. Romeo and the Ancient Mariner for the Bruce Dickinson, but for the Diano now, again, so many you could open with. You could open with Iron Maiden. You could open with Killers. You could open with all sorts of things. But for me, it has to be my favourite Diano song, and that's Phantom of the Opera. I bloody love the guitar refrain in that piece of music, and that particular song right there absolutely encapsulates new wave of British heavy metal to me. It absolutely encapsulates. It just in the 4 minute or 5 minutes that song goes for, it completely encompasses the sound that the Brits were making in the late 70s and early 80s absolutely perfectly. And to open up with Diano would be brilliant, because Diano's voice towards the end does fracture, because he had a very interesting and aggressive vocal styling. So I want that song first, so that I get the perfect lyrical nuance, a perfect song from it. Absolutely brilliant. And I know there are so many you could do with Maiden. I could do a whole show on Maiden openers, but this is for me, for the Diano era, absolutely, and for the Blaze Bailey, if we're going to chuck one on there, we're going to chuck a Blaze Bailey on there, and I'm going to say, oh gosh, it's a tough one, isn't it, the Blaze Bailey one? I'm going to say Future Real. I think it's really fast. It's very that moment in time for Maiden. It's free. It's sort of trying to be Dickinson Maiden, but with someone else, and I quite like that sort of jumping around of styles. I quite enjoy it. My favourite, really, of that particular era. Not that I'm a big fan, although you do know that since doing this show, I've fallen in love with those two albums. So it has reunited me for the Blaze Bailey era albums. They are better than I thought they were. Anyway, let's leave it at that. I didn't do the Millsie Meter, did I? If I didn't do the Millsie Meter for Elvis Costello, it's a 10. 10. If I forgot it, I probably have, so I've repeated myself. And with Phantom of the Opera and with Romeo and the Ancient Mariner, they are both 10. They are breaking the bell off the top of the meter. It has exploded the Millsie Meter. I will have to go out, have a break, and repair the Millsie Meter, because coming back on the second side are some absolute crackers that would destroy the meter if I was to press the button without repairing it. So, see you on the other side, guys. Bye for now.
Millions of people have lost weight with personalized plans from Noom, like Evan, who can't stand salads and still lost 50 pounds.
Salads generally for most people are the easy button, right? For me, that wasn't an option. I never really was a salad guy. That's just not who I am. But Noom worked for me.
Get your personalized plan today at Noom.com. Real Noom user compensated to provide their story. In 4 weeks, the typical Noom user can expect to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. Individual results may vary.
A new year is full of surprises, but one thing is always predictable. Postage costs go up. Stamps.com gives you crazy discounts of up to 89% off USPS and UPS services. So when postage goes up, your business will barely notice the change. Stamps.com is like your own personal post office, wherever you are. You can even take care of orders on the go with the mobile app. No lines, no traffic, no waiting. Schedule package pickups, automatically find the cheapest and fastest shipping options, and seamlessly connect with every major marketplace and shopping cart. There's even a supply store where you can stock up on mailing supplies, labels, even printers. Stamps.com has been indispensable for over 1 million businesses just like yours. All you need is a computer or phone and printer. Take a chunk out of your mailing and shipping costs this year with Stamps.com. Sign up with promo code PROGRAM for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial, plus free postage and a free digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. That's Stamps.com code PROGRAM.
Welcome back, guys, to part 2. I fixed the Millsie Meter. It took a bit of adjusting as I blew the head off of it with the last 2 songs. I found a spring I was looking for in the garage. They never throw any springs away and bits and bobs. You never know when you're going to need them. I had a bit of a tinker with my tool, and now we're okay. The part 2 of fantasy opening songs. Now, we're going to do some big hitters here. We ended with a big hitter. I think this is going to be major league hitting here. Now, again, as I mentioned before, these are my a mix of Millsie's, as he asked me to do the show, and he and it was a great idea. And we were discussing opening songs. Some are his, most of them are mine. And you may disagree, you may agree. It's up to you. I'd love to hear from you what your thoughts on some of these bands and their opening songs, because I mean, again, I'm an emotional kind of guy. Yeah, man. And so on Monday, it might be Phantom the Opera for opening track of Iron Maiden Diano Years, but then I could sit down, think again, and go, oh, maybe Killers. Maybe Remember Tomorrow. Who knows, right? But this is generally how I feel at this moment. So big hitters. Here we go. Another 2-parter. Black Sabbath. Tough one, right? Tough one. Because we've got... Now, I know before you attack me in the comments, I know there are several eras of Sabbath, but I'm going to go with the 3 main eras. I'm going to go with Ozzy, Dio, and Martin, all right? Because they're the 3 that I consider Black Sabbath eras. Whether the original lineups doesn't matter, they're the 3 singers of the band, and at the time when they were in the band, the lineup is the lineup we're going to talk about. So we're going to start with Ozzy. This is controversial. This is very controversial. I think I might get put off some Black Sabbath listeners here. This song closed the very final gig that I ever saw with Sabbath in Sydney on their very final tour, End of the World tour. It made me cry. I cried during the solo. I cried afterwards. I was an emotional wreck, knowing that there would be no more. So I'm feeling teared up now. Sorry. Knowing that there'll be no more Black Sabbath. Like, oh God, hang on. Yeah. Anyway, doesn't matter. Like, it's okay. Sorry. I get a bit emotional over that thought. I'm not. It just does it. They're very important to me. You could open with so many absolute all of their careers. Over the life of the albums they did, so many brilliant numbers, and I'm never going to make people happy here, but this is my one I want them to open with. They closed with their last gig. This is what I want them to open with. My favourite Iommi solo. I think it's one of Iommi's favourite solos, and that's off of Technical Ecstasy. I know it's an album that it really polarizes people, but Dirty Women. It really, I know you're gonna say, but it doesn't say Black Sabbath. It's not doomy and heavy and dark and almost psychedelic. But I know it's not. I know it's a bluesy driven song. I know that, but it's my favourite solo. And honestly, because I saw it last, and it made me cry. And it's my favourite. I want to see it first so I can enjoy the show afterwards. No ending song is going to make me happy knowing it's a very final show. But this is the Technical Ecstasy era, so it's not their very final show, you see. So I can see it live, and I can hear it first up, knowing that I'm going to hear it many times again, although they never really played it very often live. So it's just brilliant. It's just this wonderful real blues solo. I really love the nastiness and the silliness of the lyric. I think it's one of Ozzy's best vocal performances, and it's just brilliant. And that I'm going to wind up. Hang on, just winding up the Millsie meter. It might go through the roof. Yep, 10. Absolutely 10. it could not be any more than. In fact, if it could go to 11, that's where it would go. Now we move into the Dio era. Now, you will know that I'm not a huge fan of Sabbath Dio era Sabbath. I'm not. I know that can be sacrilegious to some people, but to me, no. I have to be truthful to myself. I love him in Rainbow. I love his solo career. There's just something about the way he treated the history of the band and the band itself, and try to sort of completely whitewash Ozzy and make out that he's a true Black Sabbath singer. And it really irks me, and it does irk me, and it does put me off some of the music. I mean, Heaven and Hell, we cannot put that aside as one of the greatest albums ever made. We know that. But it still hurts me the way he used to talk. Not very reverential, to be honest. So, but when I look at the songs for the opening tracks, I find myself sitting in a song that I actually don't like this album, but this song I really like off it. This is off of Mob Rules. You might think why didn't you pick something off of Heaven and Hell? No, because that's the sort of album you want later on in the gig. But for me, Sign of the Southern Cross. There's something about that song. I think it's the best song on the album. It's probably one of the best songs that Dio ever did with Sabbath. It has a sort of, because the album itself has a little bit too much of an American honky-tonk feel. I mentioned that before. This doesn't. This has a real sort of windswept heaviness, which I like about it, and I think it's actually one of Dio's favourite, best lyrical, best vocal performances on this. It feels like a Dio song played by Black Sabbath, but I love it. Anyway, then on to Tony Martin. Now, as you all know, I'm a massive Tony Martin fan. I interviewed him a couple of years ago for a website, and I put it on the show here. I've reviewed his latest album, Heaven and Headless Cross is my favourite album, full stop, of any heavy metal era. They're re-releasing as a box set in May. I cannot tell you how excited I am by that. It is my white whale. I do not have a copy of it because I left it in the UK. It's very hard to get hold of because IRS records went under. Ozzy's lovely wife would not allow for certain reasons for it to be released, and so. But finally, they've got the go-ahead, and all of the Tony Martin albums are coming out. TYR, Headless Cross, all those, brilliant. So the opening song, you would think, would it be Headless Cross? Well, I saw them at the Hammersmith Odeon, as I've mentioned before, during this tour, the Headless Cross tour, and they opened with Headless Cross, if I remember. So no, I don't want them to open with Headless Cross. I want them to open with When Death Calls, because that's, I reckon, again, Martin's brilliant vocal line. It will get the audience rumbling. It's a cracker of an MM10. It definitely hits the bell at the top of the meter. And it hangs around. It doesn't drop off. It stays at 10 and keeps buzzing, I reckon. Now, it's not the classic Sabbath lineup, but come on. Cozy Powell on drums, Tony Martin vocals, Iommi guitar. I mean, you cannot tell me that does not excite you. And off that particular album, When Death Calls is an absolute brilliant piece of music. So, staying in the same kind of genre, as we are known for heavy metal here at Heavy Metal Tones, although, do love we will be talking about prog. Hold on, I know it might not be your thing, but hold in, you might learn something. We're going to move to Slayer. Now, I've seen Slayer many times. Probably, I think, as I've mentioned, every tour since the Rain and Blood tour, I believe. And they've got lots they can open with, right? There's been some, let's be honest, there's been some misses on their albums. Their sound can sometimes be one-dimensional. If it wasn't for the Floyd Rose trem, the solos they would never solo, right? Okay. Kerry King would never solo. Now, sorry, Slayer fans, but I love it. I love his solos. I love his madness in his solos, but they're not the most intricate, are they? There's lots of bombing and diving and screeching, but hey, that's what makes them. So, opening song, what do I want from them? And I've seen them loads of times, and to be honest, this is the song I always want them to open with. I don't remember ever them opening with them. If they did, please do let me know. I might be wrong, but Dead Skin Mask or Crooked Cross, they're the two that I want. Dead Skin Mask would be up there, would be an absolute 10. Boing, it's going to get old, hasn't it, guys? That's going to get really old. 10. Crooked Cross would be around a 7 or a 8. It sort of hover. It would be hard to push past the 7 on the Millsie Meter, that one, but it still give you joy, right? Because it's actually, again, it's a Slayer and can be very hard on the ear if you're not a Slayer fan for the speed and aggression they come out of the gates with. So things like Dead Skin Mask and Crooked Cross are their sort of more easily listening lyric, right, and vocal line. So it's good to open with that. You don't really want them opening with someone like Angel of Death. It's just it just rip your face off. Now that is good if that's what you want, get you into that frenzy. But I think start with Dead Skin Mask or Crooked Cross, and and away you go. Now we're going back to Ozzy again. Ozzy. Now, Ozzy's a tough one. I'm only going to talk about the Randy Rhoads era Ozzy here. God rest your soul at Randy. We love you much, and we miss you. He's had some brilliant guitarists, and he still does. He has Zakk Wylde. He's got all those different guitarists that play with him. But latter Ozzy is, because he doesn't have the punch in his vocal anymore. God rest it. God, I hope he stays and keeps going forever. But the real Ozzy sound for me is the Zakk Wylde, the Randy Rhoads era, and he'd admit to that, and most fans would admit to that. And it's a very difficult songs to choose. There's so many bangers, so many classics from the Randy Rhoads era, and to be fair, most people would say Suicide Solution, Crazy Train. But I'm going to say my favourite because I'm a big lover of the paranormal, as you know, and the sort of darker sides of life and the more spiritual side of life. And I think that Mr. Crowley is my favourite because of that. Because it pays homage and a nod to Aleister Crowley, the most evil man in the world at one time. It's a brilliant song. Now, you could say he did a similar thing later on with other songs, but that would be a brilliant opener, because who doesn't love that opening, note? It's just brilliant. And that would be a 10. That is, again, almost taking the bell off of the Millsie Meter and setting into the stratosphere. You can't. It's, for me, oh my God, he's open with Mr. Crowley. I think I might wet myself. But I also have one I'd like them to play. Again, in around a 7 or a 8, for me, hovering around the 8 more likely, is Steal Away. Steal Away is a fun song. Again, it's one of Ozzy's best vocal lines. It's a great, easy lyric. It's got a brilliant guitar solo in it. It's punchy. It sounds like Ozzy. It has a real, there's when you smell, certain smells remind you of things, like coffee smells like, hotel mornings in a beautiful hotel restaurant, the smell of coffee, or, the smell of, for me, like gum trees, here, you know, like the smell of wattle smells like spring to me in Australia, and that's sort of the Steal Away sound is what I think of as early Aussie, like the fun Aussie, slightly fat, slightly, well, not slightly, extremely chaotic Aussie, and that's my Aussie. That's the one I love the most, to be honest with you, of his solo stuff. Now we've got a few more. I know I can keep going here, guys. I've got about 3 or 4 more I want to talk about. I might not get to everything I want, but let's try. Okay. If you're hanging in, you're hanging in. If you want to make a note of all these songs, please do. I can always try if I remember to put them in the show notes. I never remember, do I, guys? But I might try. Gary Moore, the greatest guitarist of ever, the greatest blues guitarist, in my opinion, UK, British blues guitarist. I'm going to add a caveat. But to me, God. You know, people say Eric Clapton was God, and my sister used to write Clapton as God on fences. I know she did, when she was very young. One of those people. But for me, Gary Moore is God. And, you know, there are endless amount of amazing Gary Moore tracks you could hear play live. You know, you could do anything off of off the blues album, any of those stuff, any of the blues stuff, anything at all off of the album, you know, anything. Right? I mean, I could mention hundreds, and most of them would have still got the blues. But the one song that really, and this has to be early Moore, okay? This is with Phil in it on bass. This is that song that everyone loves, everyone wants heard play, usually played in the middle of the set. But can you imagine? I've got this image in my mind of the video of Gary Moore in the red leather with these beautiful, beautiful Peter Green Gibson playing Parisian Walkways. Oh my God. The moment he holds that single note that goes on for what seems like ever in the middle of the song, you know, just, you know, he's got you in the palm of his hand. You're there, just hovering around that note while he's holding that note. And how he does it is just supreme, with the feedback, like the way he does it. And then it stops and then goes straight into the song, and you'll just bounce back in to the track. And honestly, for me, that would be an absolute screamer of an opener. If you want to talk about bangers and openers, Parisian Walkways is the way to open. It really, really is. I mean, there's so many he could open with, but wow. Early Moore, you know, post Thin Lizzy, or just, you know, God at his best, right? God at his best. God rest him. Never saw him live. One of the sad things I look back on, and never saw him live. Thank goodness we've got lots of videos we can watch of him and all his records. So that's a wonderful thing. They're going to move now to a personal experience of mine. Now this actually happened. So this isn't fantasy, but this is vague memory. Okay, this is a vague memory. You have to forgive me. I was 18 possibly, sorry. Candlemas with Messiah Marcolin at the Tufnell Park Dome. I've mentioned it before. They were a double header with triple header. It was Candlemas, it was Cathedral and St. Vitus. And they opened with Mirror Mirror. And I'm telling you, it's a small venue. If you ever get a chance to go there, it's still open, the Tufnell Park Dome in North London. It went riotous. I was at the back near the bar. I was too young at that time to venture forward. Nowadays I'll be right at the front, but back then I was a bit kind of it was really quite hardcore. There were stage diving, there were people with Mohicans, there were people with leather gear, long hair, and I was in my grandfather's old army coat and a pair of old army boots, and, you know, a trench coat it was. it was bloody hot in there. Whoa, it was hot. But when Messiah Mark Island's, bouncing around the stage in his cowl, opening to one of the greatest, probably the as my good friend Mark used to say, this is the epitome of heavy metal. This is the heavy metal riff. This is the riff that says it all, which is Mirror Mirror. So you get a chance to write this down, guys. If you haven't heard that song, I've talked about it before, but write it down. Mirror Mirror by Candlemass. Now, I'm sure they did open with that song, and if they didn't, and someone knows better than me, doesn't matter. My memory says it, my fantasy says it, and I bloody love it, and it was a great choice. Now, we've talked about solo career for some of these bands, and I'm going to talk about Bruce Dickinson here. Now, Brucey D, sorry. He's had, and even if you go back a few episodes, I did talk about Bruce Dickinson's solo albums, and he's had some hit and misses. Let's be honest, he has. We won't talk about Skunk Works. No, I did, but we won't talk about it again. But Tattooed Millionaire, again, fantasy for me, because this is my era solo Dickinson. He just left Maiden when I left school. Maybe just after, I should say, sorry. And so I was really getting into his solo stuff, and I bought this album when it came out. I bought this single when it came out. I bloody love this song. I know it's a big favourite of Matt, good friend Matt. Shout out to Matt, the best, most amazing Iron Maiden fan of them all. What a great collection. If we ever... One day I'm going to get him on the show, because what he doesn't own is not worth having. That guy is like the Maiden nut, and I love him for it. He's like an encyclopedic Maiden fan. And him, both and I agree that Born in 58 is his best. I love it. It's if you go back to the show, you'll listen to the show I talked about it. It's a biographical number. It's fun. It's so un-Maiden-y. It's so rock and roll. It's so 90s. I absolutely love it. It's an album that is probably not loved as much as it should be. It's got some cringe moments on it. Yeah, you go back and listen to my show, and you'll understand why I'm talking about that. But it's also got some moments where you just go, fucking hell, wouldn't this been amazing with Steve Harris on bass here, like with the lads on guitar, with Nico on drums. I know he did that with Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter, but this one, I bloody love it. And it would make a brilliant opening song, because it is a biographical number. And then we know more about the boy, don't we? If it's your first experience of Bruce. And then we're going to jump from Brucey. Oh God, sorry, that is a Candlemass. That's a 10. That's a bing ding 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 ding. I keep forgetting the bloody Millsie Meter. Sorry, Millsie. Brucey, 10. They're all going to be around there, aren't they? Let's be honest. They're all going to be around a 10 on the Millsie Meter. So if I forget one, it's going to be 10. Because these are my fantasies. Why would they not be? On reflection, makes common sense, doesn't it? I'm just having some tea. 1 second, guys. Out of my Queen mug, or given when the Queen passed away, a friend of mine gave me a mug with Queen on it, with the fabulous and wonderful Queen. All right, I haven't mentioned Queen as a live. They're not part of my fantasy list. I might do them as a honourable mention next week, the beginning of the show, if I remember to do so, because I struggled with finding a song. I know that Millsie wants me to mention it. In fact, I will mention. I'm going to mention it for Millsie, because he's, it's his favourite band of all time, and it would be unforgivable for me not to mention. Okay, he wants Queen to open with Liar Liar. I don't know it that well. As I mentioned before, I'm not a really big Queen fan. I have a couple of Queen albums. I have one Queen live album, which I mentioned last week. But Liar Liar, okay. I'm going to say for Millsie, it's a 10, right? It's going to break the meter. It's going to smash it into the stratosphere. So there you go, Millsie. Your fantasy opening track. I mean, if it was me, and I'm going to slightly be controversial because it's probably one of my favourite. It is my favourite Queen song. People would go, they're going to say Bohemian Rhapsody, aren't they? They're going to say it, aren't they? They're going to say, I actually think, I mentioned this before, I think for me it's, I think, let me look at my notes from last week. Give me a second. Oh, what did I write for them? You come here for the note. You come here for this, don't you? Come here for me flicking through paper. 1 second. I'm going to pause and I'll find it. See, for me, it would be Seven Seas of Rye. I know they don't play it live very often. Millsie has said he's seen them play it live, and that's amazing. Again, it has to be the Mercury era. I also probably put a cap. That for me would be around about a 7 and 8, probably a 9. Coming in at around a 7, if I wanted to find another Queen song I'd love to see them open with, and would probably be Radio Gaga, because I love that era. Reminds me again of my brother Ronald, who was a big fan of Queen, and he would play that quite a lot, and it does remind me of that period of my life. That and I love, and also you could open it because you got the clapping, so it'll be open the song, get the audience all moving, right? But for Millsie, it's going to be Liar Liar. There you go, Millsie, mate. Number 10 on the old fantasy meter. So, back to where I was. I'm losing my spot. Oh my god. We're going to end this ep with a couple of classics. Judas Priest. Now, it could be a really tough one, Judas Priest, right? Because again, classic era Priest. There's so many you could open with, so many bangers, so many slow builders. But with Priest, there's not many slow builders, is there, really? For me, it's my favourite, and it's a cover version. It's a cover version that they've made their own, and there's two actually that I would want. One would be a banger top 10 smash a meter, Millsie Meter, smash them bells into the different stratosphere, and that's Green Manalishi, because that is epitome Sabbath Priest. It's my Priest. It's the moment. It's the one I go back to all the time. I love that song immensely. I love the original version because I absolutely love Peter Green. Fleetwood Mac. I really do. And if I was doing an opening with Fleetwood Mac, it wouldn't be Green Manalishi either. It would probably be something else. But anyway, and for me, the second one. Now you're going to look at quizzically and go, really? But Eat Me Alive. Oh my God! I saw them play that during the Nostradamus tour, and it was on my CD. In fact, it was one of those weird concerts where every song they played was what I had on my CD that I was listening to at the time. When I cut myself, put all the different songs and burnt CD. It was almost track for track. And then they did the entire Nostradamus. It was bloody amazing. Whether you're a fan or not, I don't know. Go back and listen to my episode about that. It might change your mind. I got some really funny feedback about that. I don't care. I love the album. So Green Manalishi, brilliant. And then Deep Purple. We can't not talk about Deep Purple. Now again, this is original lineup Purple, and I want to do something completely different. I don't want anything. I'm going to go with Space Truckin'. Because Space Truckin' would get your blood pumping. It's a song that keeps moving and it never stops going. And it's got that real road feel, that real travelling sound. It's got that get the audience up and moving sound, right? Without being the heaviest thing they've ever done. So I love, and I also love the weird psychedelic middle eight when they go off in a weird tangent live with it. It's just, it is probably for me what I would say is my favourite Purple track. So brilliant. Okay, and then we're going to change genres completely. Here we're going to jump into my second love. You know that. I'm going to say it. It's a dirty word. You can bleep it if you want. It's prog. I love prog. You know that. And the crazier the better. The more verbose and outrageous, the more I enjoy it. Okay? And firstly, I'm going to go with the greatest of all of them, Genesis. The defining prog band of the entire genre, in my opinion. And we're going to go with Gabriel. It has to be Gabriel era Genesis. I'm not doing post Gabriel. I mean, I know that Millsie was talking about Duke, and I agree with him. That's my favourite non-Gabriel album, but I'm going to go for Gabriel. And it's not that what you think. It's not off the greatest prog album ever made. It's not off of Land by Zone on Broadway. It's not. I love that album a lot. I love it. But as I've seen it, when I saw it live last year, performed by Musical Box at the Hammersmith Odeon, it was wonderful. None of the songs on there for me I'd want to open a Genesis gig. I'm going to go with a two, okay? One would be real fantasy, and the other one would be beyond fantasy. If there was a genre of beyond fantasy on the meter, if the Millsie meter went to 20, it would be the 27-minute epic. Supper's ready. Take me there, baby. Jump me into it. I don't need any leading in. You can jump straight into that, and I'd be in raptures. Okay, that's my fantasy of fantasy. But to hit the 10, to get that meter, ding, 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 I want them to open with their only real single, Gabriel era single. That it didn't do that well. It's an unusual lyric, but it has been a part of my musical life for over 30 years. I adore it. More than 30 years. What am I saying? I'm 50, 40 years. I adore it. When Stephen Hackett didn't play it live the first time I saw him, it really quite hurt me, actually. But when he played it again, I was in tears. And that's I Know What I Like in Your Wardrobe. An odd, silly little song with very strange lyric, but I just love the a cappella bit, the do bit that goes on with Gabriel. I really, really love Colin's drums in it. You know, it's just he has a bit of a lyrical part on it. It's got choppy. It's whimsical. It's crazy, and it's my favourite. And to release it as a single just warms my heart. And to open that would be up there with 10, right? Now, we're going to move to another wonderful prog album band, the second greatest prog band of them all, and that's Yes. This is original lineup. Yes, I've actually got two lineups here. There's several lineups. I love the Trevor Horn lineup. We're not going to go there. We're going to go the original lineup, and we're going to go Time and a Word. My favourite solo of them all. It's one of those things, I don't know why, but the solo on Time and a Word just make it. There's something about it. The way that he strings the notes together, right? The way that the ugliest man in rock and roll. Sorry, I know I shouldn't say that, but Hal, let's be honest, he's a bit like Gollum, but extremely gifted with the guitar. Oh God, I know he'd probably take a laugh for that. He probably understands, man. He's probably had more groupies than I can have hot dinners. But anyway, that's my favourite. I know there's a lot of tracks that people would say, wow, nothing off of Close to the Edge, nothing off of Tales from a Tropic Ocean. No, definitely Time and a Word. And in my second favourite lineup of Yes is ABWH, or Anderson, Buford, Wakeman and Howe. They only made one album, and that's the self-titled Anderson, Buford, Wakeman and Howe. I have talked about that in the show. Go back and listen. They wrote a song that makes me cry, causes me emotional pain to listen to, but every now and again when I really miss my brother Ronald, and I do miss him a lot, it's been 40 odd years since I've seen him, brother of mine, it was written for me. That's how I feel. And I picked that cassette up out of a £1 bin at the local all night mini mart thing. I was trying to date the girl at the time. We were on a couple of dates, I believe, but sadly it didn't work out because I was also with another girl and I was trying to, I don't know what. Anyway, whole complicated. I was only 17. You know, we do strange things when we're 17. But that album, it means a lot to me. And that song generally, and to open with that, yes, I would be emotionally crippled, I read, but then afterwards they could take me on whimsical journeys. I don't want to go home with a tear in my eye. I'd rather have that at the beginning and then move on, right? The same happens as well with ELPs and X-Band, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. They vie for me for the greatest prog band, along with Genesis, they really do, for the complete and utter musical madness that they create. And yes, so many, you could say Fanfare for the Common Man, you could do all sorts of things with them, but this particular track, this makes me proud to be British, this song, and I find it just beautiful. It's a very old song. It's written by William Blake. The lyrics are William Blake. Jerusalem, for me, should be the national anthem of Great Britain, of England. I absolutely it makes the hair stand on the back of my hands or arms, and the way that ELP do it and what they do to make it. I know that Bruce Dickinson has also done Jerusalem, but to me, this is the one to open with. This is the standard bearer of ELP. This is their moment, right? This is the moment that says we are crazy Brits, and we're proud to be British, and this is our moment, and we're gonna sing this song and make you feel reverential, and it makes you think, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful song. And to open it, sadly, they're never going to play live again because sadly 2 of them are gone. So, you know, there's only Cole Palmer left. Please put him in cotton wool and don't let him get hurt, because I don't think I could stand the fact of ELP all being gone. Yeah, amazing. Stadium rocker. That would be a 10. A ding, 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 ding. Straight up there. Straight in there. Could not be any more than a 10. Really, truly. Honestly. In fact, anything off of Brain Salad Surgery could sit there in that room and could open this album, open this concert, but certainly Jerusalem is the one. I'm going to finish here now, guys, because I've been chatting for over an hour. I'm going to finish here with my favourite band, non-metal band of all, and that's Marillion. And I'm going to end it on this because these two were would be hard for me to think about. I've got the Fish era and the Hogarth era. Now, I have to give you a caveat again. The Hogarth era, I don't listen to a lot. The first 2 Hogarth era albums I listen to a lot. But the others I dip in and out of because I found they start to become AOR and middle of the road, and a little bit dad rock for me. And we're going to talk about Marillion. Tough one, right? Of all the wonderful albums, of all the opening songs you want, I'm going to go with this one. Now, people that know me, John, you'll know this. You'll know it's my favourite. Tux On. Tux On, which was the B-side to Sugar Mice. Or was it Walnut Circles? No, Sugar Mice. And off the Clutching at Straws album, it's one of my favourite Fish lyrics. It's actually my favourite Hogarth guitar solo. It was an absolute surprise to me because it wasn't on the album. Shake my fists in the air and make a grrr noise. It wasn't on the album, but they did put on that bloody Going Under song. Again, go back, listen to my episode about this album. It was the B-side of the single, and I played it on my Iowa stereo stack system that I had in my bedroom that was a second hand from my brother who gave to me. The tape deck didn't work, the radio didn't work, only the record deck. But when I put it on and I flip that single over and play Tucked On, and there's me standing with my tennis racket in front of the mirror, and I was Steve Hogarth for that 3.5 minutes. Not Steve Hogarth, Stephen Rothery. Oh, sorry, too many Steves. Wow, memories. And that would open, if they open with that, holy Christ, wonderful. I mean, I will do a songs that close a show ultimately sometime this year, but this is an opener, an absolute cracking opener. And in the Hogarth era, a tough one again. I've only got one for me. Actually, there's two, but the one that I saw them at the Wembley Arena with an old girlfriend of mine during the Easter. It was the Seasons Ends tour, the very first tour with Stephen Hogarth, and I don't think they open with Easter, but Easter's the one that I want them to open with. In my fantasy, in my mind, they open with Easter because that's his best solo with Marillion. With Hogarth Marillion, I should say. People will say, other people would say that. He says it's his favourite solo. I have to agree with it. It's a beautiful song. It's so un-Marillion-y. It sort of straddles a different genre. It doesn't have prog in it at all. It's quite a rocky poppy era song, and I really, really dig it. And it was a great single, and I really loved when I bought it. I mean, I have to say that it's a close contention is Uninvited Guest, and to be really controversial, Hooks in You. And you know, and I'm just going to say this, Easter's a 10, ding, 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 crash. You know, Hooks in You and Uninvited Guests, they'll sit around 8. They'll nudge the 8. And to go a little bit lower, but sort of nudge the +5s, which I still would think would be pretty decent as an opener, is actually Holidays in Eden. I really, really dig that song. In fact, I was only listening to that this morning. What a way to finish for the day, guys. That's me. I could go on and on and on and on and on. I could go. There's endless opportunities. I hope that you've enjoyed this hour-long opening songs. If you don't know half of these songs or don't know them, please go and listen. Thanks for Millsie for his inspiration. I've bloody loved these last 2 episodes. They've actually been a real boost for me because, you know, over the Christmas period, you get really busy and ideas can slip away from you. I've got some, as I said, a brilliant idea for the 150th episode. I've got some cracking ideas coming up. I've got a band just reached out to me from Europe to review their singles, which I'll be doing as well, which I'm really excited about. And so that's it for me. Do tell me what your Millsie meters would be, where they would hit. Would your opening songs hit 10? I'm sure they would. Would your classic songs on already released albums, do they hit 10? I'm sure they would. So this show was sponsored to you by Millsie and his Millsie Meter, and this Queen Cup with hot cup of tea in it. Anyway, bye for now, guys. Keep safe. Chat to you next week. Bye.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
Hi, I'm Leti Sagun.
And I'm Ashley Frangi.
And together we host Se Regalan Dudas, a Spanish podcast with many episodes in English as well that has hit over 100 million downloads worldwide, making it to the top 25 global chart.
What started as a raw, unfiltered conversations between 2 best friends struck a chord with millions, evolving into an open space where we bring in experts, thought leaders to challenge the norms, explore topics ranging from relationships and sexuality to personal growth and mental health. Here, no topic is off limits.
Catch new episodes of Se Regalan Dudas every Tuesday and Thursday on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on YouTube. Let's dive deep, challenge norms, and have some real talk together. The way you would spell and find our podcast is SE space REGALAN space DUDAS. Se Regalan Dudas.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.